This Senator John McCain cast his no vote despite the intense last-minute lobbying from Vice President Mike Pence. The former Indiana governor stood with McCain talking to him on that Senate floor for more than 20 minutes. The Washington Post reports that Pence even delayed taking what was believed to be a phone call from the White House. This as he tried to persuade McCain into voting for the slimmed-down health care bill. Vice President Pence then continued his lobbying in private in the Senate Republican cloakroom, but it was too little, too late as McCain emerged from that cloakroom to cast his deciding no vote. Now to some reaction from Indiana senators. Democrat Joe Donnelly has long fought against the repeal of the Affordable Care Act. After last night's vote, he says, quote, "I still believe that by working together, we can improve our health care system, and at a minimum, Congress and the administration should do no harm to the millions of Americans whose health and economic well-being are at stake." And Republican Senator Todd Young says in part, quote, "Going forward, I will participate in the hearings in the Help Committee and continue to work with my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to come up with a solution." We have much more ahead on the news at noon. An American hero honored before being laid to rest. We'll have the details on the funeral for a Middletown native. And harsh words out of the president's new communications director. Hear the colorful language he used when describing another member on staff. Todd.
And Lauren, we're dealing with skies that are in the process of turning partly cloudy right now across central Indiana, but all this will lead to a wonderful weekend forecast. We'll talk all about it when the RTV6 News at Noon continues right here on RTV6.
Weekdays at 3 on RTV6. From the station working for you, this is RTV6 News at Noon.
Hundreds honoring a man many call an American hero. Navy Hospital Corpsman Second Class Ryan Lowry. He was one of 16 U.S. servicemen killed after their plane crashed in Mississippi earlier this month. His body was returned home to Indiana last night. Lowry served 2 tours in Iraq and Afghanistan, and he was also a Purple Heart recipient. His funeral service is scheduled for Monday at the Middletown Church of the Nazarene. Well, today there will be a memorial service dedicated to the men of the USS Indianapolis and an Indy native who survived that attack and killed hundreds of crewmen just as World War II was about to end. 72 years ago, that ship was torpedoed by the Japanese shortly after it delivered some of the components for that first atomic bomb that would later be dropped on Japan. After surviving, Jimmy O'Donnell continued his serving the Navy until 1946, and then he returned here to Indianapolis and became a firefighter, returning in 1981. The memorial service starts at 2 o'clock at Indy City Market. It's all part of an annual USS Indianapolis Survivors Reunion this weekend, which will draw some of the remaining survivors who are still alive. Colorful language out of the White House. Coming up, we'll tell you what the new communications director had to say about another person in the president's close circle. And the boys in blue heading back out on the football field. Training camp starts tomorrow for the Indianapolis Colts. How you can get in on the action. That's coming up. And here's a live look downtown from our Weather Now camera. Todd will have your Storm Team 6 forecast. After the break, you're watching the news at noon on RTV6.
800-850-5054.
Welcome back to the news at noon. We want to take you to Washington this midday where there's turmoil inside of the White House. The new communications director is publicly slamming certain key members of the Trump administration, and now he's even threatening to fire essentially the entire White House communications staff over leaks. ABC's Elizabeth Herr has more.
The West Wing at war.
This is a level of chaos that we have just not seen in any modern White House and can't imagine being in the past.
President Trump, for now, not defending his chief of staff, Reince Priebus, as his new communications director, Anthony Scaramucci, calls Priebus a bleeping paranoid schizophrenic. In a profanity-laced interview with New Yorker magazine's Ryan Lizza, Scaramucci also targeted Trump's chief